The 9 o'clock service is about 15 minutes, so I'll see what I can do to cut it back. But anyway, you don't want to hear me all this time. But anyway, we're in the Advent journey to the manger of Bethlehem, right? And so this is the 4th week. The 4th candle is lit on the Advent wreath, where the countdown days to Christmas are right here this week, and we're going to be busy, and the sun's coming out. It feels like Easter out, doesn't it? But that's okay. That's okay. We celebrate the whole story of Christ each and every Sunday. So though we're in the season of Advent, we rejoice and we celebrate not only his birth, that he came, that he was predicted to come, that he came, and that he will come again. So we're here talking about today, though, about Emanuel, God with us. You see, God says he saw the dire predicament of the human race. And he saw the ugliness, the brutality, the violence, the abuse, the hurting, and the pain and the sorrow of humanity. He saw the emptiness and the restlessness of humanity, of people in rebellion to God. And so he saw all of this, and he saw his once beautiful creation now bogged down by sin. The stains of rebellion brought separation from God and brought death because of sin. Human desires rose up to rule our own wills. We're done. God's will, not done. And so God saw that death reigned like a cold-hearted tyrant over his creation. And at the right time, and God's timing is perfect, at God's timing, at the right time, God sprang into action. A little over 2,000 years ago, God's indescribable gift, and that comes from 2 Corinthians, God's indescribable gift came into the world, was meant for life and for salvation. God's indescribable gift, which descended from heaven to earth, Emanuel, God with us. God with us. Emanuel came to speak life to death and came to speak hope to hopelessness. Through a baby born in a smelly animal stall, whose head was laid in a bed of straw, in a manger, a feeding trough. But it wasn't just any baby. It was God in a manger. It was God in a manger, divinity shivering in the cold. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that all those who believe in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Death and the grave has lost its sting and victory. God gave his Son, Emanuel, God with us, in the grave, into the world, so that we would not face the grave. So great was God's love for his fallen creation that he left his glory behind. He left his heavenly throne for a manger, a barn. He left his crown, his royal crown, and received a crown of thorns. He left his royal robes for the clothes of the swaddling clothes of a newborn baby. He did it all to be Emmanuel, God with us. Our God, our Creator, the author and the source of all of life, the eternal sovereign God, sovereign all over, all leadership, all rulership. The eternal rulership or sovereignty of God came to be with us. He wasn't a near God. He wasn't an almost around the corner kind of God. He wasn't a zip code kind of of God, where, you know, if you lived in a great zip code, you know, a wealthy zip code, he would come to you. He was not a God for some people. He was not a God for the holy people or the good people. Emanuel means God is with you and me. Not will be with you and me. Not could be with you and me. Not with you and me if, you can fill in the blank, God with you and me. God with us. That's God's promise. That's God's gift to you and me. What is true and what is real is that God is with us. I shared a story, and I guess a lot of people didn't remember it at the first service. I don't know, sometime in the last few years, but I'm going to share it with you again because it really is, it works with this theme of Emanuel. There were two elderly women, in their late 80s. They were widowed sisters living in North Dakota. They were living on a farm, and the farm had long become neglected. You know, it was falling down around them. The barn was, you know, kind of crumbling. The chicken coops were almost flattened out. The trees needed to be cut down or trimmed. The lawn needed to be mowed. The bushes needed to be yanked out. Everything was overgrown, and the fences were crumbling, and there was rusted machinery just left out in the fields. And anyway, the two sisters were unable to keep up with the place any longer, but they were tough as nails. They had weathered many a storm in North Dakota, the snows and the blizzards and the windstorms, the dust storms, the rain, and tornadoes. Well, anyway, one day their nephew decided to come for a visit. And he was like really surprised with what he saw. You know, it was pretty run down, but he was very gracious and didn't say anything to his two aunties, and they had a lovely visit nonetheless. But before he left, he wanted to take some pictures. So he went around the property, and of course, he's taking pictures of a rundown piece of property, and the rundown chicken coop, and the fences that were collapsing, and then he got to the barn, and he took a picture of the barn. Then he wanted his two aunts to be in the picture. So they stood in front of the barn, and he took a picture, and they were smiling, and they were very, very happy. And later he sent the picture to his aunts. And they loved the picture. They were very pleased with the picture because they were smiling, they looked very happy. And they loved the picture so much that they decided to use it as a Christmas card. And so on the top of the Christmas card, it says in big bold letters, "Merry Christmas." And then there was the picture of the barn and the two aunties. And at the bottom of the card, it said, "God is with us in our mess." God is with us in our mess. Emanuel. God is with us in our mess. This is the message of the journey of faith. Mary Beth, you're good. You're good. God is with us in our mess. God's gracious love is with us. God is with us in the messy world we live in the messy lives we live. God is with us in the messy hearts, our messy minds, our messy homes, our messy families, our messy thinking. God is with us because it is the only way that life is found. We live in a broken world. We live in a world set against itself. And so we live messy lives. There's no place where we can go where life is not messed up. God's message to us is not that God protects us from the messiness of life, but rather that in the very messiness of life, there is God. There is Emanuel, God with us. God with us, giving us strength, giving us wisdom, guiding us, giving us understanding to live in this messy, messed up, broken, sin-soaked world. A world that is inside of us, broken and sinful, and the world that is around us, that is messed up, broken, and sinful. And so God is with us in the messiness of a marriage that's run off in a ditch. God is with us in the messiness of broken promises that we have given our spouses or our children. God is with us in the messiness of the loss of employment. God is with us in the messiness of alcohol abuse and drug abuse and painkiller abuse. God is with us in the messiness of our tense relationships with our children. God is with us in the messiness of a diagnosis that you didn't want to receive, in a surgery that's gone wrong, in the loss of a loved one, in the messiness of our lives. God is with us in our loneliness and in our lost dreams. God is with us. He's with you. He's with me. This is God's promise. This is who he is in his Son, Jesus Christ. God is in the inner city. So that means he's in Chicago. And we hear a lot about Chicago. God is in the inner city. God is with the cardboard boxes of the homeless. And God is with the refugee camps throughout the Middle East and Europe and even in Africa. God is with and in the cries heard under the din of warfare. This is his character. This is who he is. He is our God. And he is the one that we ought to worship and praise at this time of the year especially, and to remember the reason for this season. This is who God is. And because this is who God is, you and I can face any messiness of our lives, any sin of our lives, any problem and struggle and pain. We can face depression. We can face mental illness. We can face cancer. We can face broken relationships. We can face financial reversals. We can face betrayal of trust. We can face our own sinfulness. Emanuel means we can face anything life can throw at us, because he who is in us is greater than he who is in the world. We have a God who lives and reigns in us. We are his children, named by him, claimed by him, and he is our God, Emanuel, God with us. Did you?